morning, students. Good morning to all of you. So, students, today we are going to start with the assessment procedure. The topic, students, in the next 2 days, which I'm going to complete for all of you, would be the assessment procedure, penalties, appeals revision, rectification. So these are the topics which we are going to finish it off in our discussion. So the first and foremost, students, would be on the assessment procedure. So let's start on this one. So students, this is the 11th session which we are doing it on the chart revision which is there. I have already completed. The last lecture was TDS and TCS. Students, in this video I'll share with you the link of all the lectures that I have done in this video. So those who are seeing this video for the first time, they will find the link of all the lecture, students. Okay, I'll share with all of you in this case. Don't worry about it. Now, students, this assessment procedure that we will be doing, assessment procedure, penalties and all. See, I'll tell you that they are important for everything. Like MCQs also they do ask. They also do ask certain case laws as well. So it's actually, this area of a syllabus is actually a blend of descriptive questions, MCQs, and that is what, and the case laws. That is the beauty of this particular part of the syllabus, students. So when you deal with this particular chapter, students, one thing you should be very clear about is that do it thoroughly, and the best part is that, students, you just need to understand the flow and the link. Some of the areas will require by-hearting. Like in penalties, there are certain numbers and some thresholds. Some penalties, students, there are some numbers and thresholds that requires by-hearting, but I'll tell you about the smart way to revise those areas as well. The smart way of revision, students, of those areas as well, so that you will be in a position to see through them as well peacefully. Fine, students. So that is what we are going to deal and discuss so far as those topics are concerned. Now with that, if you all are through with this, let's look upon to this particular part of our journey. So let's start on this one, students, all of you. Good morning, student. So in that particular case, so this is the chart which we are going to use, would be the chart number 124. From there onwards, the assessment procedure begins. Fine, students. Now, the initial point, like the PAN and other things which are there, PAN is applicable to whom, who is required to take up the PAN. This particular part, students, I feel that maybe that is not that important about the applicability of the PAN. But students, here there is one important change which I just wanted to share with all of you. Students, you all are aware about this provision of section 206AA. Every one of you are aware of this provision 206AA. So therefore, in this context, this provision, if the PAN is not furnished, the TDS furnished to the payer of the amount, then he will deduct TDS at 20%. Be careful, another MCQ question. Now we have got from Finance Act 2021 even a 5% category of the TDS that would be required This 5% is in respect of the 194O and 194Q. The 194O and the 194Q. So these two sections, students, are the relatively new sections because their rate is 0.1%. So the moment they think that, okay, this is very 0.1% rate, which is the general rate for them, and from 0.1%, if supposedly you have to charge a TDS of 20% for non-furnishing of PAN, I think, students, you should be aware that this is really very harsh. When the rate is as low as 0.1% and then thinking of to charge a TDS of 20% in the case when the PAN is not furnished, don't you think that, students, this would be too harsh? And that's exactly what they have thought of it. So here also, students, you find that wherever this situation occurs, they have said that the TDS rate in this context, students, will be at the rate of 5%. The TDS would be at the rate of 5% for the case of 194O and 194Q where the PAN has not been furnished. Students, where the PAN has not been furnished, okay? So just keep this particular point in mind, and with that we proceed further. Now, interchangeability of PAN with Aadhaar, students, I think all of you are aware of this particular part. So we go directly to the second phase, which is all about the ROI, very important one. Now, students, one point which is there for the ROI is about the self-assessment. Now, students, you tell me one thing, that even if I have not filed the ROI, even if I have not made the payment of the self-assessment tax, students, if I haven't made the payment of the self-assessment tax, will I still be eligible to file the return of income, students? If the SA tax is not yet paid by the SSC, can he still file the ROI? What is your take, students, on this one? Can he still file the ROI, students? And the answer to that is yes. And the answer to that, students, is yes. The ROI in this case can still be filed even if the SA tax hasn't been paid. Even if the SA tax hasn't been paid, students. So just keep that in mind. Earlier, the ROI which was filed even without the SA tax was being paid, earlier such ROI was considered as defective. But now they are no longer considered to be defective, students, and that is one thing that you should always be careful about it. So if you see over here in this context, so here, students, mere non-payment of the self-assessment tax, return of income shall not be treated as defective. Just keep this point in mind. Fine, students. Now, apart from that, students, let's have a look. Who is the person? 139.1. 139.1. 139.1 says what? Students, 139 subsection 1 says about who is the person who is obligated to file the ROI. Mamta. Who is the person who is obligated to file the ROI? So, in that particular case, the company and the firm always are obligated to file the ROI. And I think we all are aware. We don't look into the thresholds, monetary thresholds and all, but they are always obligated to file the ROI. Now, apart from that, students, just be very careful about these two persons. Beneficial owner, herein this point. Person being the resident and ordinary resident. A resident and ordinary resident who is not required to file the ROI but is a beneficial owner or the beneficiary or signing authority of the assets, including the financial assets located outside India. Now just please pay attention to this particular term. Students, after 2012, the concept of Swiss bank has vanished. I think all of you are aware of it. Why the Swiss bank was vanished? Because we had entered into the agreement with the Swiss authority as per which there would be a complete exchange of information, students. There would be a complete exchange of information between India and the Swiss authority. So that sort of an exchange of information is going to take place between the two countries. Between what? The two country students. Now in this situation, with that sort of an exchange of the information that has taken place, the money was then all the tax evaders. These people took out the money and they started then putting the money or started investing in various assets, probably in the name of a trust or various assets in the name of a person who was a local of that country. So therefore there was a trust which actually came into picture, or in the name of the locals of those countries, that the assets were getting invested, and you actually became the beneficial owner of those assets. So the name was that of the locals of that country, but you were the beneficial owner, or you were the beneficiary, as the case may be. And because you were the beneficial owner or the beneficiary, in that case, this is the new normal. The new normal is this, that now we don't find the amount in the Swiss bank. What we find today is this, that because obviously nobody would want to risk it, because Swiss authority has now an agreement with Indian government as per which they will automatically share this information about whose money is there in this particular Swiss account. So what we now do at this point of time, we now came up with the medium of the trust. So there is a trust which will get opened up in the foreign country. The trustee would be the local of that particular country, and probably we either become the beneficiary of the asset which we will transfer to that particular trust, or we are the beneficial owner of the asset. So if such is the arrangement, then we, being the resident and the ordinary resident, will we be required to file the ROI? Will we be required to file the ROI to that, students? The answer is yes. So this is a criteria for you to ensure that the ROI is required to be filed. So this is a mandatory, students' point. This point is mandatory. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you are clear with this one. Okay, apart from that, students, what else? Apart from that, the individual HUF, AOP and BOI, for these categories of the person, students, the criteria would be when the GTI, be careful students, when the GTI before applying the exemption of 54 series, that will be the benchmark for the purpose of obligation to file the ROI. That will become the benchmark for the purpose of the obligation to file the ROI. So students, you will get a question like this. So there is a house property income which is there, and say the house property income is of rupees 2 lakhs. Okay, house property income, students, is of rupees 2 lakhs. Now there is an LTCG which is there of, say, rupees 15 lakh rupees, students, and then there is an exemption that has been claimed in, say, section 54 EC. Some exemption has been claimed of entire 15 lakhs. This is nil. GTI is 2 lakhs. Okay, and there is no chapter 6A, so tax is nil. So I am talking about, say, of Mr. A. Tax is nil, students. Now with this particular point, now ROI, will it be mandatory for them under 139(1)? Is this person obligated to file the ROI? And the answer is yes. Why is it so, students? Because the GTI, before applying the exemption of 54 series, does it exceeded the GTI before applying the exemption of 54 series, does it exceeded the basic income limit? And the answer is yes. GTI before, students, 54 series exemption would have been rupees 17 lakhs. Do you all agree? GTI before applying the exemption of 54 series would have been rupees 17 lakhs. Do you all agree to this? Not exactly the point. Not exactly the point, and therefore in this case, this is what we are going to speak about it. If you all are clear with this one, students, then I proceed further now. Now students, over here there are some other criteria also. There are some other criteria, students, also, which makes an obligation on the person to file the return of income. Now be just careful, students, here, because I will be doing a lot of interlinking of this in the subsequent revision, which I will proceed further. So a lot of interlinking is going to take place. Students, you all are aware about this fact. Now, even if supposingly the individual and HUF, for company and the firm, they are always obligated to file the ROI. But let's look upon to the individual and the HUF, or the AOP or BOI, or the artificial juridical person, for whom the obligation to file the ROI will arise only if the GTI, before applying the exemption of 54 series, has exceeded the basic exemption limit. Now let's look upon to this angle, students. Supposingly here, for them students, they have made a deposit of an amount, or the aggregate of the amount, in more than rupees 1 crore in one or more current account maintained with the banking company or a cooperative bank. Students, they are doing a deposit here. So I will take you through to two particular angles. Be careful. So here, students, they have made a deposit with SBI of 60 lakhs, and thereafter 60 lakhs deposit has taken place with the SBI, and with HDFC the deposit, students, is 50 lakhs. This is with the SBI and this is with the HDFC. So question arises in this regard. The question that arises, students, in this regard, whether there would be an obligation to file the return of income. Answer is no. You have to look into a banking company. You have to look into, students, what? A banking company. Which means in one banking company, the aggregate of the deposit that you are making in the current account for the previous year should be more than rupees 1 crore. That is what you should look into it. So in this case, the obligation will not arise. But if both of them, say for example, are HDFC, and the aggregate of my deposit during the year is more than rupees 1 crore, can we now say that there is an obligation to file the ROI? And the answer is yes. Now we can say that yes, there is an obligation to file the ROI. Now coming on point number 2, students, just pay attention to second point as well. So far as point number 2 is concerned, students, the second point I'm talking about it. Let's look upon to that then. Herein, so students, so far as the second particular point is concerned, please pay attention over here. Students, here the individual would come under the obligation to file the ROI. The individual will come under the obligation to file the ROI. There would be a second angle also now, and the second angle would be the banking company in this particular case. The banking company in this particular case, will they be required to file the AIR, statement of financial transaction? Answer is yes. The banking company, students, in this particular case, they will be required to file the AIR, or the statement of the financial transaction. And why is it so? You all are aware. Why is it so? Because there is a 10 lakhs limit in that particular, rule number 114E. 10 lakhs is the limit of the various deposits which are made in aggregate in current account, or maybe in a saving account, doesn't matter. So you are making a deposit of rupees 10 lakhs or above with that particular banking company. So therefore the banking company will be required to file the AIR and report that particular transaction with the Director General of Income Tax investigation. Is that clear to all of you, students? Apart from that, students, he has incurred the expenditure. Here what is critical is incurring the expenditure, students, of an amount which is exceeding rupees 2 lakhs for himself or any other person for travel to the foreign country. We were looking into the MCQ on the other day, and in the MCQ they have given to us that the ticket fare was rupees the ticket fare, students, was 1.5 lakhs. Then in the foreign country the hotel stay was another 1 lakh, and some lodging and boarding and other particular sightseeing was 50,000. So ticket fare 1.5 lakhs, hotel booking 1 lakh, then after sightseeing and all 50,000. that was the expenditure which I have incurred. That was the expenditure which I have incurred. Question therefore was whether I would be under the obligation to file the ROI or not. Whether I will come under the obligation to file the ROI in this case or not, students, answer is no. They are only talking about incurring the expenditure for the travel to a foreign country. Be very careful. Incurring the expenditure, students, incurring the expenditure for the travel to the foreign country, only this will create an obligation to file the ROI. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So far as point number C is concerned, students, over here we are talking about exceeding 1 lakh towards the consumption of the electricity. So that is the point which is there so far as point C is concerned. With that, students, we are done with this. Any doubts, any queries, students, do let me know. Now comes the due date to file the ROI under 139.1. I think all of you are aware there are 3 due dates which are being there. Students, just a reminder to all of you that these are the due dates to file the ROI. But in one MCQ that we have done it, in that case, please understand one thing. So far as the filing of the reports are concerned, the tax audit report and the other reports now that needs to be filed in various sections, those reports needs to be filed a month before the due date of filing of the ROI. A month before the due date of filing of the ROI. So in this context, students, in this particular context, we can say that supposing the due date is 31st of October. 31st of October. And if it is 31st of October, then in that case, the 30th of September will become the due date to file those reports. Same is the case with the transfer pricing. The due date, we all are aware, it is 30th of November 2000, whatever is the assessment year. 30th November of that particular assessment year. But the transfer pricing report under 92E, the accountant report under 92E should be filed by 31st of October. It should be filed by 31st of October. Is that clear to all of you, students? Fair enough. Now, students, the situation of a lost return 139.3. Now, you all are aware. Students, this is an important section which you all are aware. ATIAC. So, ATAC. And what they've said it about, just hold on to look into this one. The importance of the due date, students. The importance of the due date, if you have to talk from that particular perspective, supposingly if you are a person who is under the obligation to file the return of income and you have not filed the return of income within the due date of section 139.1, then what will happen in this case? So students, in this particular case, what will happen would be the profit link deduction, the entire series of the profit link deduction would get lost. Also just keep in mind, this is all about the profit link deduction which has been there. Apart from that, students, this ATJJAA, this is also an important section. Corporate Society, ATP, ATPA, this royalty and patent, this is the copyright royalty and this is the patent royalty. So these royalties also will not be available at all if you haven't filed the return of income within the due date of section 139.1. If you haven't filed the return of income within the due date of section 139.1. Is that clear to all of you? So this is one of the very important implication or the importance of the due date. So these are the important implications of the due date, that if you don't file the ROI within the due date, then these particular deduction will be lost. That is point number 1. Now next point, students, over here is this. On the next particular point, students, is about, what is the next particular point, students, in this context? So this is all about the profit link deduction that we are talking about it. This is all about the profit link deduction. Apart from this one, students, 139 subsection 3, the loss. So if you have got the loss under the 2 heads, which are those 2 heads? The 2 head, students, are the 2 head, students, which are there, the PGBP and the head capital gains. The PGBP and the head capital gains, and you want to carry forward those particular losses. Students. Then in that situation, you need to file the return of income within the due date of 139(1). Be careful, students. The restriction is only for carry forward and not for set off. So there can be a situation wherein a house property loss, a house property has got an income, PGBP. Now PGBP loss will not include the unabsorbed depreciation. PGBP loss, students, will not include the unabsorbed depreciation. So say PGBP has got a loss of 5 lakhs. So what happens over here now, students? That whether this set off, is this possible? And the answer is yes. So this 70 set off, this is a set off. Section 70 is all about the set off. So this 70 set off is possible. But after this set off, students, after this particular set off, what is the balance amount? 3 lakhs. This balance amount of 3 lakhs, can that be carried forward? And the answer is no. So this carry forward will not be allowed if the ROI has been filed primarily after the due date of, so this is allowed, but what is not allowed is the carry forward. So after the due date of 139(1), if you are filing, after due date of 139(1), if you are filing, then this particular, after set off, whatever is the balance loss, that balance loss will not be allowed to be carried forward. I hope that this point is well taken by all of you. Every one of you are also clear about this. Shall we then proceed further? If you all are clear with this particular proposition, students, find any doubt. So this is what it is in this context. Now, one more particular point which I just want to bring to your attention, which is this, about a change that has taken place on the imposition of the penalty with effect from assessment year 22-23. The change that has taken place on the imposition of the penalty with effect from assessment year 22-23. Students, those person who are obligated to file the ROI, you just now need to see that if they have not filed the return of income within the due date of section 139(1), then the amount of penalty would be either 1,000 or rupees 5,000 as the case may be. Now, students, I have seen one very common error which students are doing. For 234F, they are not using the word penalty. Instead of that, they are using the word fee. Please don't do that. This is not a 234E that you have to refer this to be a case of a. This is, students, not a 234E that you have to refer this to be a fees. That TDS statement. Remember the TDS statement. If you don't file the TDS statement within that particular, the quarterly TDS statement or the TCS statements that you have to file, and the due date is 1 month after the end of the relevant quarter for the TDS statement, or 15 days after the end of the relevant quarter for the TCS. So if you don't file it within the due date, then what happens? 234E talks about the fee, and the fee would be rupees 100 per day. That is fee. But here in 234F, you don't use the word fee, it is a penalty. This is about the return of income under 139(1), in which there was an obligation on you to file the same, but you haven't filed the return of income. And in that case, your total income, students, which was there was 5 lakh rupees. So 5 lakhs happens to be the threshold amount. The 5 lakhs happens to be a threshold amount. So if the total income, students, which they are mentioning it over here, is more than rupees 5 lakhs or up to rupees 5 lakhs as the case may be, if the total income in this particular case is more than rupees 5 lakhs or up to rupees 5 lakhs as the case may be. So if it is more than rupees 5 lakhs, then the penalty is 5,000. If it is up to rupees 5 lakhs, then the penalty is 1,000. Now, so just this correction that you just do it here in the chart. There's one small correction. This is about the belated return under 139(4), and we can see over here that if the return is not furnished as per the time limit under 139(1), then may be furnished before, earlier of the this ones. It has to be furnished now before 31st December of the AY, or the completion of the assessment, whichever is earlier. So now the belated return, students, we all know can be filed up to 31st of December of the AY. Same is also for the revised return. It is also now the same thing, which is the 31st of December of the AY. So just keep this particular amendment in mind. So the last return for any particular assessment year, be it the revised return or be it the belated return, is 31st of December of that particular AY. So if you're talking about assessment year 22-23, if you're talking about the assessment year 22-23, then for assessment year 22-23, the last date for the filing of the return of income will be 31st December 2022. 31st December 2022. Now from this particular part we have discussed here in the case of the TDS section. And remember the exemption to file the ROI. This is about what? This is about the exemption to file the ROI. Now this exemption is applicable to a resident individual, students. Now please pay attention. We were up till now only focused on the exemption to file the ROI was made applicable. Exemption to file the ROI up till now we were attuned to, or we were only focused on the non-resident. So only in respect of the non-resident that this exemption to file the ROI were being discussed. Students. Do you all agree to this one? Only in respect of the exemption to file the ROIs. Now if you see for the non-resident, these are the sections which was being there. I think all of you are aware of this one also. So for the non-resident students, which we can speak about it, what we all get it is this. Point number 1. So what we all get, students, over here with them in this context. Point number 1 which has been there, students. The second one and the third one. The second one, students, and the third one. So if you all will see over here in this context, the first one, students, 139 herein, the return of income will not be required to be filed. Students, are you aware of this one? The return of income will not be required to be filed in this case. I'll just quickly will make a reference of it. Remember, if the income of 115A only is there and the TDS has been deducted as per the Act rate, TDS is deducted as per the Act rate. I hope that all of you are aware of this one. The second point which was being there was about the non-resident sports person 115 BBA. The non-resident sports person 115 BBA. So the non-resident sports person of 115 BBA, even for them the 20% TDS rate, same thing. For them also it was there. And the third one also, I'll just write it for all of you, and this is about the NRI, non-resident Indian, chapter 12A, who has got only the income which is specified in chapter 12A for them. Only the income which is specified in chapter 12A, only those are the income. If they have got it, then in that case also the non-resident Indian will be eligible for the exemption to file the return of income if the TDS has been deducted as per the rate which is specified in that particular chapter. That is the Act rate, not the DTAA rate. So there is an exemption which has been given to the non-resident. Now in the similar lines, now we have the exemption which is being available. In the similar lines, students, we have the exemption now which is available to a resident individual. Now students, we have got a new concept of a senior citizen in this particular exemption, and the new concept of the senior citizen over here is that senior citizen who is having the age of 75 years or above. That senior citizen, students, who has got the age of 75 years or above. So students, any senior citizen having the age of 75 years or above, for them this exemption is applicable, and this exemption is applicable if the senior citizen has got only one income, and that is the pension income, which they are depositing in the specified bank. And yes, if they are depositing in the specified bank, in this case, obviously there can also be one more income in consequence of such deposit. There could also be one more income, and that is the interest portion on such particular deposit of the pension with that particular specified bank. So there could be a pension and the interest arising on that particular pension on account of the deposit which has been made in the specified bank. On account of the deposit which has been made in that particular specified bank. So students, in this context, he has got the pension and he doesn't have any other income apart from that particular interest income. So students, what happens here is this, that now this bank will be the one who will take into account this income of pension and the interest, if any, arising on this particular pension which is maintained, which is deposited in the account maintained with them. So the bank will calculate what would be the tax amount in that regard. What would be the tax amount in that regard? And this particular tax amount, students, this particular tax amount which has been there will be, why they will not be taxable? Which type of pension? If it is like a commuted pension and uncommuted pension, we have to go with that particular concept of salary that we have done. So whatever is the exemption which is available in terms of the salary, only that is there. There is no such thing that there will not be exempt. So there is the exempt pension that we are talking about, it like the commuted and the uncommuted pension. So uncommuted pension is fully taxable. So in this context, which we all are aware in this context, so therefore we have to go with that concept only. There is no other amendment that has been made so far as the pension taxability is concerned. So coming back, students, over here is that. So this person, now what will happen? The bank will be under the obligation. Then to compute what would be the tax liability of this particular senior citizen, age 75 years or above, in the previous year 21-22. So they will be the one who will be computing the total income tax liability, and thereafter they will be filing the return. Students, and this is what they will be dealing with it. So students, this is what it would be required to be done. So it is just like, students, 192. That there is no rate of tax. Students, there is no rate of tax which has been mentioned to you. This is just like 192 provision which has been there, wherein the TDS rate would be the average rate of tax. Student, the TDS rate would be the average rate of tax, and based on that average rate of tax, that the TDS becomes deductible. With that, now students, ROI through. We come to the next part after the ROI, students. As you all are aware, what happens with the intimation, students, is what has been sent. After the ROI, students, what is sent is the intimation. Do you all agree to this one? Every one of them will get the intimation. Now, students, the intimation, when we talk about the intimation, obviously, students, this intimation is always on the basis of the ROI. So on the basis of the ROI that you send the intimation. Now this ROI, you can, on the basis of the ROI, you are sending the intimation, and if there is any apparent mistake or incorrect claims which are there in this particular ROI, so any apparent mistake or incorrect claim, any apparent mistake or incorrect claims, apparent mistake or incorrect claims, can that be rectified? Can that be rectified? And the answer is yes, can be rectified in this case. And based on this, on the basis of the ROI and on the basis of the rectification, students, on the basis of the rectification which will be made, rectification that will be made on any incorrect claims or any incorrect errors on the ROI, that the intimation shall be sent. Now the intimation that they will send to you, students. So intimation will be sent on the basis of this. This is the basis of sending the intimation, students, by the way. Now, what is the time limit to send the intimation? The time limit, students, if you see, is now also is revised. 9 months from the end of the financial year in which the ROI is filed. 9 months from the end of the financial year. From the end of the financial year. Can you see this? From the end of the financial year in which the ROI is filed. So the financial year in which it ends, students, is what? Is your 31st of the financial year. So for relevant assessment year, 22-23, the financial year in which you file the return of income is definitely 22-23. The financial year in which you file the return of income, not the financial year for which you are filing the return of income. The financial year in which you file the return of income happens to be, students, 22-23. So from 22-23 plus 9 months if you do, so you will get how much, students? Plus 9 months that you all do gets you 31st of December 2023. Sorry, 2022. 31st of December 2022. 31st of December 2022. This is what you all get it, students, in this context. This is what you all get it, students, in this context. Do you all agree to this one, student? Every one of you? So intimation that has been sent, so time limit would be 9 months from the end of the financial year, which brings this particular case to be of 31st of December 2022. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one. Now, when you send the intimation, students, the intimation sent could be of two types. Three types, but I am going to write only for two types. The three types would be the nil return. So if there is a nil return completely and there is nothing which comes even after there is no rectification also of the apparent mistake in the ROI. So your acknowledgement in that particular case, with a case of a nil return, your acknowledgement in that particular case can be deemed to be an intimation. The acknowledgement in that particular case can be deemed to be an intimation. But apart from that, there is a huge possibility of two things. One is about that the sum becomes payable on the basis of the ROI or on the basis of any of the arithmetical mistake which is corrected through the intimation process. So the sum becomes payable. And if the sum becomes payable, students, we shall say that. What is that we will all say? If the sum becomes payable, students, then in that particular case, what is that we will say in this regard? Students, then be very careful. Then the intimation that you will send, this intimation under 143.1 will be deemed to be what, students? This intimation will be deemed to be the notice of demand. Deemed to be NOD, notice of demand. What does it imply? It implies that if you have not made the payment, once you get the intimation, and after that within 30 days from the date of service of this intimation, if you don't make the payment, then in that case you will be considered as an SSC in default. And the moment you are considered as an SSC in default, what happens, students? The recovery proceedings begins. On you, students, then the recovery proceedings begins. Did you all get this one? So on you, students, the recovery proceedings begin. That exactly is the point. So I hope that all of you are clear with this particular proposition. So this is the deemed to be a notice of demand, and that is the point which is there. Now, if there is a refund due, students, refund due under 143.1, can it be withheld by the AO? Can it be withheld by the AO, students? What is your take? Can it be withheld by the AO? If there is a refund which is due, then can it be withheld by the AO? To that the answer is yes. Why not? This refund which is due under section 143.1, that can very much be withheld by the assessing officer, students. That can very much be withheld by the assessing officer. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So the refund can definitely be withheld by the assessing officer, students, in this context. Thank you, Shutadev. So the refund which has been there, students, can it be withheld by the assessing officer? And the answer is yes. Now when you talk about withholding the refund by the assessing officer, if you talk about the withholding of the refund by the assessing officer, students, in this particular context, withholding of the refund by the assessing officer, students. So what do you all get it in this particular case when you talk about the withholding of the refund? Students, here the assessing officer needs to have a ground. Why he wants to withhold the refund, he needs to have the ground. So the ground in this particular case to withhold the refund is this. The ground to withhold the refund, students, is this. And what is the ground? Number one, the first and the foremost, students, the ground to withhold the refund is what? The first and the foremost ground in this regard is the fact that the assessing officer, may I write like this, students? So the ground here is that the grant of refund, the AOs of the opinion, sorry, just write properly, students, over here. The AO should be of the opinion. AOs of the opinion what? The AOs of the opinion that the grant of refund, will adversely affect the interest of revenue. Grant of refund will adversely affect the interest of revenue. Or may I say adversely affect the recovery. Recovery, Shuddhadev. The recovery. So the grant of refund will adversely affect the recovery. So that is what they are talking about it. Adversely affect the recovery. That is point number 1. So this is the ground. Then in that case, what is the procedure then they need to file? What is the procedure, students, that they need to file? So the procedure that they need to file would be, so here the AO is of the opinion that the grant of the refund will adversely affect the recovery. And now what is the procedure that needs to be filed in this case? The procedure is, number 1 is that 2 procedures are there, that record the reasons in writing. Record the reasons in writing. Record the reasons, students, in writing. In writing. So you need to record the reasons in writing. And the second procedure is take the prior approval of the PCIT. Prior approval needs to be taken, students, approval from the CIT or the PCIT as the case may be. So this is the procedure that needs to be followed. So what is the ground and what is the procedure? So the ground in this case would be that the AO should be of the opinion that the grant of the refund will adversely affect the recovery of revenue. And the second one is about the procedure, which is that the SSC need to record the reasons in writing. The AO will have to record the reasons in writing, and thereafter, students, with the prior approval being taken from the CIT or the PCIT, he definitely can withhold the refund. So whether the withholding of refund rate is possible, and the answer is yes. This is what 241A says. This is what student section 241A says. So that is precisely the point. So far as section 241A is concerned, that is precisely the point. So far as section 241A is concerned, I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. Are you all clear with this one, students, in this context? Every one of you are clear with this particular proposition, students? So this is how the things has to be looked upon. This is how, students, it has to be looked upon. Now, after this, students, what is the next particular point? Please be very careful about it. After this, students, what is the next particular point? Please be very, very careful about it. And that is about what? Students, here, whether the refund which has been withheld by the AO under the section 241A, can that be adjusted against? Can that be adjusted against any demand of the SSC? Any demand which is payable by the SSC? And the answer is yes. So this adjustment of the refund which is withheld from the demand which is payable by the SSC, that adjustment, is it possible? Answer is yes. This adjustment, Shuddhadev, is very much possible. So he just need to make an intimation to that effect, Mohit. He just need to make an intimation to that effect, and accordingly, by making that intimation, he will be in a position to do this particular adjustment, and that adjustment will be under section 245. Now, one of the most important question, students, which I can see for your May 22 attempt is this case law, which the ICI has covered. Which case law, students? Raghuveer Synthetics Limited, Supreme Court. This case law, students, ICI has covered in their module, but they haven't targeted in the examination up till now. And because they haven't targeted in the examination up till now, therefore I consider this case law to be one of the most important ones. Students, just now we have discussed that when you are sending the intimation, then what? Then the apparent mistake, students. Then we have seen over here is this, that the apparent mistake is what can be rectified in the ROI, and based on that, whatever is the intimation which will be generated, the same will be sent to the SSC. Apparent mistake, students. Yes, Shuddhadev, that would be available. Apparent mistake is what would be rectified. Apparent mistake, students, is what would be rectified. I think that point is all of you are aware with this. Now, with this apparent mistake concept, students, all of you will pay attention to this point as well. Please pay attention. So what happens, students, now? What happens, students, in this case now is this, that there was a case. Now, as you people would be aware that a judgment of the Supreme Court will bind the entire country. A judgment of the Supreme Court, students, will bind the entire country. Every one of you can agree on this one, isn't it? How about the High Court judgment? So High Court judgment is binding only in respect of the assessee or the income tax authority which are in that particular state. The High Court judgment is binding only on that assessee or the income tax authority who are in that particular state. So students, what happened was, in this particular case, the assessee was assessee of Gujarat, and while filing the return of income, he has overlooked an earlier judgment of the Gujarat High Court on the similar issue. He has overlooked a earlier judgment of the Gujarat High Court on the similar issue, and accordingly he has filed the return of income. And accordingly, students, he has filed the return of income. So here was the assessee filing the ROI, overlooking the earlier judgment, students of whom? Earlier judgment, students, of the same Gujarat High Court on the same issue, and accordingly he has filed the return of income. That return of income was processed thereafter. And once it was being processed, the assessing officer, he has rectified the return based on that High Court judgment. And accordingly, because of that, there was some sum payable which got generated. There was some sum payable that became due, and that sum payable was called upon through the notice through the intimation under 143(1). Is this particular correction made by the assessing officer justified? And the Supreme Court said yes, it is justified, because if you have overlooked a binding judgment of your High Court, then in that case, that return can be said to have an apparent mistake. That return can be said to have what? An apparent mistake. And because that return can be said to have an apparent mistake, therefore, students, the rectification of such apparent mistake will then become mandatory. The rectification of such apparent mistake, students, will that become mandatory? To that the answer is yes. So the rectification of that apparent mistake will become necessary by the assessing officer. So please be very careful. If the High Court is your jurisdictional High Court, whose judgment has been overlooked, then that return of income will definitely be referred as what, students? As a ROI having an apparent mistake. And because it is an ROI having an apparent mistake, accordingly, I think that all of you are aware of it now. Because it is an ROI having an apparent mistake, students, I think all of you are aware of this proposition now. Is that clear to all of you, students? Every one of you. So this is what, students, is a chart which I have prepared for all of you. Apart from this, so we have discussed this particular proposition completely, and we have dealt with this one. Students, so Raghuveer synthetics is the case law which I am just telling to all of you again. Just be extremely careful about this judgment. Okay? Because the scope, as you all are aware, is on the basis of the ROI plus rectifying the apparent mistake. So what is apparent as per the Supreme Court judgment? The claim of the deduction overlooking a binding jurisdictional High Court judgment. A claim of a deduction overlooking a binding jurisdictional High Court judgment. This would be an apparent mistake. Okay. And if the refund due in this context, can that be withheld? The refund due, if it is arising from an intimation, can that be withheld? And the answer is yes. It can be withheld with the same condition which I have taught to all of you. With that, now, students, we come to our section on the assessment. Now, students, the phase 4, the fourth phase is all about the assessment. This would be an important discussion, students. Be very careful about this. Now, what is this fourth phase which is about the assessment? First of all, students, the notice can be given to you. The notice, students, the moment, students, the notice is given, the assessment begins. Always keep in mind this point, students. what happens is this, that say the ROI for the relevant assessment year, students, yes, for the relevant assessment year, say assessment year 22-23. So for the assessment year 22-23, the ROI would have been filed by the SSE. Now the due dates, as you all are aware, what are the due dates on which the ROI would be filed? Those due dates are also known to all of you. Those due dates are also, students, known to all of you. Now thereafter, after the due date, students, is concerned, the intimation under section 143(1) also would have been sent. The intimation under section 143(1), students, also would have been sent. So the intimation, students, under 143(1) would have been sent, and as you all are aware, for the intimation you will see the scope and the time limit. We have just now seen about the intimation, so I'm not discussing anymore this particular point. Now comes the real game. Students, the moment thereafter 5% cases get the notices. The 5% cases get the notice, isn't it? Now the notice could be, students, would be under the two sections which you all are aware, could be under 142(1) or the notice could be under 143(2). This notice of 143(2), students, as you all are aware, is a notice of scrutiny. But my main point of discussion over here is that the moment the notice would be given to you, the proceedings, the assessment proceedings, the proceedings will begin. It will start. The moment the notices are being given to you, the proceedings will be started on you, students. And if something has been started on you, the same will also be ended. So the proceedings begins on the notice being sent. And how the proceeding is over? The proceeding, students, is over on the passing of the order. The proceeding is over on what? On the passing of the order. So the moment the order has been passed, so passing of the order will complete the proceedings. Passing of the order, students, will complete the proceedings. And do you know under which section that the order will be passed in this regard? The passing of the order will complete the proceedings. The order that will be passed would be under the two section 143(3) and 144. These are the regular assessment order. These are the regular assessment order, students. The order under 143 or the order under 144 are nothing but the regular assessment order. That is what they are trying to suggest in this particular case. Now, so far as this notice is concerned, students, 143(2) notice is concerned over here. So far as this notice is concerned, students, what is that we are going to speak about it? There are two things which has been there. And what is the two things which has been there? One is the scope or the objective of the notice of scrutiny. So always keep in one thing in mind. When you give the notice, the proceedings start. Once you pass the order, the proceeding is over. Once you give the notice, proceedings start. Once you pass the order, proceeding is over. Is that clear to all of you? Now, so far as the notice of scrutiny is concerned, students, what is the two things? One is, what is the objective of the notice of scrutiny? What is the objective of the notice of scrutiny? And second one, students, is what is the time limit? Students, we all know why the notice of scrutiny are being sent. All of you are aware that the purpose for which the notice of scrutiny is being sent is, one is about to check whether there is an underpayment of tax. Also to check whether there is an understatement of income. And finally, students, also to check whether there is an excessive claim of deduction or losses. So this is the objective why the notice of scrutiny are being sent. These are the objectives why the notice of scrutiny are being sent. Underpayment of tax, understatement of income, excessive loss being taken as deduction. That becomes the objective of why the notices are being sent. And thereafter, students, is your time limit. And the time limit up till when the notice of scrutiny has to be served. So the time limit, students, is about, the time limit is about what? The service. So the service time limit is given. And the service time limit, students, now is 3 months. 3 months from the end of the financial year. From the end of the financial year in which the ROI is filed, and end of the financial year in which the ROI is filed, So if your ROI, which we are talking about for the relevant assessment year, your assessment year is 22-23. So in that financial year would be also the same financial year. and therefore I can give the notice of scrutiny. I can serve the notice of scrutiny. Latest date is 30th of June 2023. The last date of service of the notice of scrutiny will then be 30th of June 2023. Will you all agree to this one? With the 3 months time limit which has been given to us, the last date will then be 30th of June 2023. I hope that all of you are aware of this one. Is that clear to all of you? So 3 months from the end of the financial year in which the ROI has been filed. 3 months from the end of the financial year in which the ROI has been filed. So with that, students, this is what it is in this context. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one now. All of you are clear with this particular point, students? All of you? Perfect. So with that one, students, there is a situation. By the way, students, I think every one of you also are aware about this section 292BB. Supposingly the notice of scrutiny is served on you. So supposing this time limit is of service. So one particular very popular example, students, every one of you are aware of it, and that example happens to be, students, supposingly, students, the notice of scrutiny herein, notice of scrutiny has been issued on 29th of June. 29th of June. So issued means it was being dispatched from the department 29th of June 2023. The same notice of scrutiny got served. Service that took place was on 1st of July 2023. So what would have been the last date of the service? The service last date would have been 30th of June. But actually it got served. Served means received. It got received on 1st of July. So obviously going by this is a time barred case. This is a time barred. And if it is a time barred case, the SSC should not have complied to this notice of scrutiny. The SSC should not have complied to this notice of scrutiny. But what the SSC did was, it still went ahead and did the compliance of this notice of scrutiny. What the SSC did in this case was, it still went ahead and did the compliance towards this notice of scrutiny. And if that is what the SSC would have done it, students, then we shall say, in this regard, students, can you tell me this? If that is what the SSC would have done it, students, please tell me. If the SSC has not raised any objection before the assessing officer and has given the necessary cooperation during the course of the assessment, if the SSC has not, this was also the MCQ which was targeted, Jade. This was also the MCQ which was being targeted. And what was that MCQ? That if the SSC has not raised any objection about the validity of the notice that was being served upon on him, and he has given the necessary cooperation before the assessing officer, then will he be allowed to raise any objection subsequently in the appellate proceedings about the validity of this particular notice? Answer is no. 292BB, students, comes to 292BB comes for the protection of the assessing officer, and based on which provision of 292BB, students, based on which the provision of 292BB, we will say that as per the provision of section 292BB, we all will say, students, we all will say that. Perfect, students, perfect. Based on that 292BB, we will say that the notice will be deemed to be valid. Perfect. The notice will be deemed to be valid. Yes, he has participated, if he has participated in the proceedings without raising any objection about its validity. Exactly, students. Perfect. So that is all about the notice part. Now, students, coming on this part, again, just let me in fact reframe this for all of you. So what we were discussing, students, over here is this, that the ROI has been filed. The ROI has been filed for that particular relevant assessment year. Yes, Shudhadev, it is for the benefit of the revenue. So 22-23, the ROI has been filed. So has been filed in this regard. Okay. Now intimation may also would have been sent, and 143.1, the intimation would have been sent, not an issue. Intimation would have been sent. Now as I told you, here is a game, and the game is that of the notice. So therefore the notice has been sent, and because of the notice, the proceeding has started. The notice which we all are aware, 142.1 or 143.2. We have made a discussion. The proceedings has begun. And what did I told you just now? Proceeding in this case has begun. What did I told you just now, friends? The proceeding is ended by passing of the order. The proceeding is over by passing of the order. By passing of the order, the proceeding is over. So therefore, the order could be passed. As I told you, the regular assessment. Be careful. Be careful on the regular assessment, students. The regular assessment are done in the two sections. Which are the two sections, students, of the regular assessment? The regular assessment 2 section is 143 or 144. 144, students. So 143 and 144. Now there is a special assessment of 147, students. There is a special assessment of 147. Now, students, 147 link I will share with you in this particular YouTube. 147 link I am going to share with you in this particular YouTube. So that link will get shared with all of you. Okay, I'm going to share with that 147 link, which you just ensure to go through it very carefully. All of you just ensure, students, to go through that 147 link very carefully. Is that clear to all of you, students? So over here, if you see 143 and 144, and what do we get it over here? Be careful, students. Two things we all get it. One is about the scope. What is the scope of the assessment? What is the scope of the assessment, students? You will say, sir, we are not finding any link. Don't worry, I'll give me a day's time. The link I'll just share in this video itself. In the description box, I'll share it. Don't worry. The link. So here the scope of the assessment, students, and the time limit. So the regular assessment order under 143 or 144. What is the time limit to pass the order, students? Now be very careful, students. The time limit to pass the order is 9 months from the end of the relevant AY. 9 months. This time limit, by the way, is given to you under section 153(1). This time limit to pass this regular assessment order, students, is given to you in section 153(1), and the time limit which has been there is what? The time limit, students, which has been given to you is, in this particular case, is 9 months from the end of the relevant AY. From the end of 9 months from the end of the relevant assessment year, and therefore for the relevant AY 22-23, relevant AY 22-23, so in that case that 9 months will be what? 31st of what? 31st of December 2023. Can we all say this? 31st of December 2023. So this becomes the time limit in this regard. 31st of December 2023 becomes the time limit. 9 months from the end of the relevant AY. AY is 22-23, and therefore it becomes 31st of December 2023. How about the scope, students, in this case? So far as the scope is concerned, students, what we all say, so far as the scope is concerned, what we all say, after taking into account the order, students, after taking into account all the materials which is gathered by the AO. Shuddhadev. After taking into account all the materials gathered by the AO, he shall pass the order. He shall pass the order. By the way, students, I'll prove it. Just give me a minute's time. I'll just prove it, this thing which I've just written for all of you. So after taking into account all the materials gathered by the AO, he shall pass the order, students. Did you all got this one? He shall pass the order. Now over here, students, what is a more important point which is there? He will take into account all the materials which he has gathered. He will take into account, students, what? All the materials which he has gathered, and by virtue of those materials, he is going to pass the order. By virtue of those materials, students, is he going to pass the order? And the answer is yes, he is going to pass the order by virtue of those particular materials. Is that clear to all of you? Now over here, there is one very important point that will emerge. Over here, students, there would be a very important point that will emerge, and this is this. Be careful. So here, students, so what they have mentioned over here is that after taking into account all the materials gathered by the AO, he shall pass the order. Please tell me one thing. Is the one very popular question is whether the intimation of 143.1, whether the intimation of 143.1 can that be considered to be an order of assessment? Can that be considered to be an order of assessment? Can that is what would be considered? This is a very popular question of the ICAI. At different point of time, they have targeted this question in a very unique way. The crux of the question is this only, that whether an intimation of 143.1 can that be considered to be an order of assessment. So through that the answer definitely has to be no. An intimation of 143.1 can never ever be considered to be an order of assessment. And why is it so? Just now you have seen the scope of intimation. Just now, students, you have seen the scope of intimation, and now you are seeing the scope of the order of assessment. And what is the scope of intimation? The scope of intimation that you can see is that the intimation is on the basis of the ROI subject to the correction of any apparent mistake. The intimation is on the basis of what? The intimation is on the basis of the ROI subject to the correction of any apparent mistake. This is the scope so far as the intimation is concerned. This is the scope so far as the intimation is concerned. And how about the order of assessment? How about the order of assessment? So far as the order of assessment is concerned, is it on the basis of the ROI? Is the order of assessment on the basis of the ROI? No. So far as the order of assessment is concerned, it is after taking into account all the materials gathered by the AO. It is after taking into account all the materials gathered by the AO that the order is passed, and hence we say and conclude that the intimation is not. Hence we say that the intimation is not an order of assessment. Hence we say that the intimation is not on the order of assessment. So this is on the basis of the ROI. This is on the basis of the ROI. Primarily, and this is on the basis of ROI. Order is on the basis of ROI. No, order is on the basis of all the materials which is gathered by the AO. So students, be careful. If the assessing officer has to gather the material on the basis of which he will pass his order, just imagine this. If the assessing officer has to collect the material on the basis of which he will pass the order, so how he is going to do that? Now, by the way, students, before we start analyzing this, can you tell me one thing? Between the point of the notice, between the point of notice till the point of order, between the point of notice till the point of order, we will say this particular entire phase to be what? A pendency. The proceeding is pending. So there is a pendency of proceedings in between. Pendency of what? The proceedings. Which proceedings are going on? The assessment proceedings. So this entire phase, students, we will say as a case of a pendency of proceedings. Now, what will happen in the case of pendency of proceedings? The assessing officer will have to exercise, will gather the evidence. AO shall gather the evidence. And if he has to gather the evidence, shall gather, students, the evidence. And if the AO will be gathering the evidence, for this the AO will exercise the power or not, for which the power will be exercised. Power shall be exercised to that effect. In this context, students, so in this particular context, students, herein power shall be exercised. Now, in the with section, students, the power will be exercised. Indeed, the power will be exercised to gather the evidence, and based on that evidence, the order shall be passed. Based on that evidence, students, the order shall be passed. Now, if you all will see what are the sections which are being there, based on this, students, what are the sections, students, that has been there. So, the sections in which the power will be exercised to gather the evidence, students, I am just creating a sequence for all of you. 133. These are the section where the AO is going to exercise the power, and based on that, he is going to gather the evidence or the material, and based on the material, he is going to pass the order. So the order is not on the basis of ROI. The ROI is on the basis of the material which is gathered by the AO. To gather the material, does the AO requires the power? Yes. Under which section, therefore, the AO has the power to gather the material? These are the sections. These are the sections. So 133, 131. Thereafter 133A, 133B is this provision, and thereafter point number 5, probably, which is, I will say about it as 144A, point number 6, 127, point number 7, 142-2A, and last but not the least, students, is 142A. These are the powers which is available to the assessing officer, exercising which the assessing officer is going to collect the materials. Based on the materials, the assessing officer is going to pass the order of assessment, and that exactly what these sections are all about. That exactly what these sections are all about. I hope that this point is well taken by all of you. I hope that this point is well taken by all of you. Is that clear to all of you, Shruti? Every one of you. So if you all are through with this one, students, let me then bring this particular part. Each section will do it now, students. Quickly, let's finish it off. The power of the income tax authority. The power, one of the most important section, and this attempt, students, I see 133A or 133B most expected, most likely, so far as your examinations are concerned. 133 and 133B, yeah? Students, be careful. I cannot rule out the other section, but this section at least I can say to you, very important. Before we start doing the section, students, I was talking about this time limit to complete the assessment. What is the time limit to complete the assessment? What did I told you? 9 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. 9 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. Isn't it? By the way, students, are you aware of it? I think I have discussed this point with all of you. If it is a transfer pricing case, students, if it is a transfer pricing case, do you know what happens? This 9 months gets further extended to. This 9 months gets further extended to more 12 months. So 9 plus 12 would be the time limit for the transfer pricing cases. 9 plus 12 would be the time limit for the transfer pricing cases. Do you all agree to this one? 9 plus 12 would be the time limit for the transfer pricing cases, isn't it? And that exactly is the point. Now, students, let's look upon to the various power. I'll go with the power first, students. One by one, we'll discuss each and every section which I've listed upon for all of you. All the section, students, which I've listed. Let's look upon to this. Let's look upon to this one, students. So, starting with 133, I'll just go with the sequence, students, which I've made for all of you. 133. Power to call for the information. The first section, students, is the power to call for the information. Now, so far as the power to call for the information is concerned, under 133, this is again a very dangerous provision, students. Very dangerous. Now, here, students, many students struggle to really remember these various officers. That who are the officers? Just focus, students. Take it in a very simple way. You are right now doing the assessment, and in the assessment, the person who is active is the AO. In the assessment, the person who is active is the AO. So we have to see whether the AO has got the power or not. Whether the AO has the power to exercise this particular power. Just you to focus only on the AO for the time being. And the AO name is mentioned. But here, students, what they are trying to say is this, that however, when no proceeding is pending, then this power of 133, students, this power of 133 can be exercised only on the prior approval of the CIT. If no proceedings are pending, students, in that particular case, this particular power can be exercised only on the prior approval of the CIT or the DIT, as the case may be. Fair enough. Not an issue. Do you know what they are trying to convey? A message over here, students. What they are trying to convey a message, students, over here. The message which is conveyed is like this. Be careful. In my example, which I have shown, the case study which I have given to you, I am telling you that look, this particular person, he is exercising the power during the pendency of the proceedings. The proceedings are pending. Now, if the proceedings are pending, which is there in my example, in my case study, will he be required to obtain any prior approval for it? Answer is no. So he will not be required to obtain any prior approval in this regard. This is what we will say of it, isn't it? So no prior approval, students, will be required in this case. No prior approval, students, will be required in this case. Do you all agree to this one? Yes. No prior approval will be required in this case, students, and that exactly is the point. The second one, students, is about the fact that if, however, the AO has passed the order, the moment he will pass the order, the proceeding is complete. And if the proceeding is complete, thereafter, if the assessing officer wants to exercise this particular power, then definitely he can do so. But the fact that no proceedings now is pending before him, then a curiosity will come that why you want to exercise this particular power when no proceeding is pending before you. So therefore, whether you have to take a prior approval of the CIT or the PCIT, and the answer is yes. And the answer is yes. So students, the prior approval therefore becomes mandatory in this case. Now students, this is such a wide power which is there. Just forget anything what is written over here, because just focus only on the last point. Just forget everything whatever is written about this one. This is such a wide power. Just focus on the last particular row. And what is the last particular row? Students, through this particular section of 133, you can give the notice to any person, including the officer of the banking company, and you can call for the information which you think it is relevant for, which you think it may be relevant or useful for any proceedings which is there under the Act. So there can be a case where there is a case of the SSC of, say, Mumbai, whose case is going on, and the AO thinks that there is a person who is there in Kolkata. He can give some very vital information about this particular case of assessment of the SSC of Mumbai. So this AO of Mumbai, he can give a notice to the SSC of Kolkata or a person of Kolkata and try to get the information. Information of whom? Information which the AO of Mumbai consider to be useful in respect of a proceedings which is being conducted on the SSC of Mumbai. So this is the kind of a power which we are talking about, students. This is the kind of the power, students, that we are talking about it. That assessment is going on in Mumbai of an SSC based in Mumbai, and the notice under 133, the AO is giving it to a person who is based in Kolkata. He is giving the notice to a person who is based in Kolkata, and from that particular notice, he is calling for the information. From that particular notice, students, he is calling for the information. And that exactly, yes, Jane. And that exactly is the point. Also, to the officer of a banking company, that this notices can be given, and the officer cannot talk about that. No, sir, we will not share the accounts detail of our account holder. No, nothing done. You have to share it. This is the kind of a power which is available, students. And if there is a failure to give those information which is demanded by the AO, if there is a failure to give those information which is demanded by the AO, then in that particular case, students, the penalty that will be imposed will be rupees 100 per day. The penalty that will be imposed, students, will be rupees 100 per day, and that exactly is the game. If he fails to comply with the above section, then the penalty would be rupees 100 per day. Is that clear to all of you? Every one of you are clear with this one? Now the next section which is there in our list is the power of 131. Again, a very big power. A dangerous power, students. Which power? The power of 131. Now, students, if you see here also, the notice can be given to any person. In 131 also, students, the notice can be given to any person, but there is something very peculiar, something very unique to section 131. And the peculiarity here is this, that he can enforce in this section, apart from giving the notice and getting the information, he can enforce the attendance of a person and compel the production of the books of accounts. And not only that, the books of accounts which has been produced, that can be impounded, that it can be seized within that 15 days time limit. Within that 15 days time limit. And that 15 days can also be extended further with the prior approval of the CIT or the PCIT, as the case may be. With the prior approval of the CIT or PCIT, as the case may be, students. So that is the kind of the nature of power that we are talking about it, students. Huge one, massive. As per which, as we all can see over here, students, the income tax authority who is there over here, they can enforce the attendance of a person or the banking officer, compel the production of the books of accounts, issue the summons and the commissions, and can impound what, students? And they can impound the books of accounts for a period of 15 days. I hope that every one of you are clear with this particular point. Fine. So this is the comparison between 133. So here in 131. 133, you cannot compel the, you cannot enforce the attendance of a person. No, that cannot be done. This can be done in 131 only. Same way in 133, you cannot compel the production of books of accounts. What you can only ask is the information. Not that you can tell that in 133 you produce the books of accounts. That is also not possible. And also, if the books of accounts cannot be produced, so therefore, where is a question of impounding the books under 133? Where is a question of impounding the books under 133? Is that clear to all of you? So now, students, in this case 133, one question in the examination they have targeted, and that question was that whether in 133 you can you seize or impound the assets of the SSE, stock in trade or any valuables of the SSE? Can that be impounded in the provision of section 131? Can that be done? This was one of the question of the examination, and the answer is obvious no. That cannot be impounded. The power to impound or the power to seize the assets, valuables, is only there in the provision of section 132. It is the provision of section 132 which empowers the authorities to seize the assets and the valuables of the SSE apart from the books of accounts. Apart from the books of accounts. So that was one of the question. Now, what if the SSE, students, what if the SSE does not comply with the notice? So notice was been given to the SSE under 131 and it doesn't make any compliance for the same. So dare not do it, students. Dare not you do this. But if you have done it, students, then be ready that in such particular case, there would be a penalty of rupees 10,000 that will be imposed. There would be a penalty, students, of rupees 10,000 that will be imposed. That is a flat penalty, students, of rupees 10,000 that will get imposed. That is what they are trying to talk about it. Apart from the penalty, students, there would also be a search under 132. See, this is very dangerous thing. In 132 search, the ground for the purpose of initiating the search is that the SSE has got undisclosed income. That is one of the ground for the providing the authorization for search. But apart from this, there is one of the more important ground for the purpose of search, and that one of the more important ground of the search is that the SSE has been given a notice of 131. The SSE has been given a notice of 131, and that notice of 131 has been overlooked by the SSE. So he has not done the compliance. And if you don't do the compliance, be ready for the search then. Now the next section, students, that is there. What is the next section? It is about the survey. 133A. The next section, students, is about survey. Students, this attempt for May 22, this survey and search is one of the very important section for May 22 attempt. This survey and the search is one of the most important section for the May 22 attempt. Is that clear to all of you? Now, what is this concept of survey which we are talking about it? Students, survey, as you all are aware, that what can be done in this case is that the place of business. Students, the place of business, you can enter into the place of business and the survey can be undertaken. So the power that is available under 133A is this, that you all can enter into the place of business and the survey can be initiated. So this is what it is. See, one thing which is there, these are the only two sections where you can take the SSE for a surprise. And these are the two sections, therefore, where the where the AO can gather the maximum evidences. And that section is the section where the survey can be undertaken and the section where the search can be undertaken. For the simple reason that, students, we all are aware that here you can directly jump into the SSC's premises. You can directly, students, go to the premises of the SSC, and wherever you can go to the premises of the SSC, students, I think you all are aware that maximum information could be gathered. The maximum information, students, can that be gathered? And the answer is yes, why not? And that exactly is the point. Now, if you see, as far as survey is concerned, the survey, students, is generally in the place of business. Whereas if you talk about search, the ultimate power available to the Income Tax Authority, that particular power of search, it is not only restricted in the place of business, but it is also extended to what, students? Apart from the place of business, students, it is also extended to even the area of residence where the SSC lives, isn't it? His residence, where the SSC stays. So that is also the particular area which can be searched. But in the case of survey, it is only the place of business. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now, going by this particular 133A, what we have got? Going by this particular section 133A, students, what do we have? So obviously, students, the moment you have to go to the premises, of the SSC or the place of business of the SSC, you will have to take the approvals. Students, will you have to take the approvals or not? If you have to go to the place of business of the SSC and do the survey, will you have to do the approval? Yes. All the lower authorities, maybe the assessing officers. Now, before whom the approval has to be taken? Before whom the approval has to be taken, students, in this context? So the approval, students, has to be taken. Students, the approval has to be taken either from the JCIT or the approval has to be taken from the CIT, as the case may be. You will always keep in mind this point. The approval, because these are the questions which is targeted in the examination, and you cannot escape from such questions. The approval has to be taken either from the JCIT or the approval has to be taken from the CIT. Now, when JCIT and when CIT, I will give you an example. Students, if the survey, the reason for doing the survey is the information which is coming from the Income Tax Department itself, which is known as prescribed authority above. So if the information is coming from the Income Tax Authority or the Income Tax Department itself, we will say that the survey should be conducted. We shall say in this case that the survey, students, shall be conducted based on, students, the survey in this particular case shall be conducted, students, based on what? In this context. Indeed. So if the Income Tax Authority is the one, the CBDT is the one who is sharing this information to the Income Tax Department, and accordingly based on that information, I, who is the assessing officer, wants to conduct this survey. So if I, being the assessing officer, wants to go ahead and do the survey, students, please tell me one thing. Whether I should go and keep on approaching the CIT, kindly give me the permission. Should I be going to the CIT? What the CIT will say, like, look, I also know that what is that information, because I am also an Income Tax Authority, so I am also aware of it. Please don't irritate me. So in that case, if the information is coming from the prescribed authority because of which you want to go ahead and do the survey, so please don't irritate the CIT, because CIT will get irritated. You are not telling him anything new about it. He also knows about it. So do one thing, take the permission of the Joint Commissioner and then go and do the survey. Take this particular permission of the Joint Commissioner and then go and do the survey. But what if the reason for which you want to do the survey is not the reason coming from the prescribed authority, that is CBDT. So if that is not the reason why you want to do the survey, if the reason for the survey is something else, If the reason for doing the survey, students, is something else, now you tell me, students, in this case. Now all of you are going to tell me, students, in this case. Are you going to be telling to the CIT in this case the reason what made you think to do the survey in the premises of the SSC? And the answer is yes, because even this information the CIT would be very interested to know about it, because this he also is not aware about it. He is also not aware about it. So in all the remaining cases, you need to take the approvals from whom? From the CIT. Whereas wherever the information is coming from wherever the information is coming from the JCIT or the JDIT, you will have to take the approval from wherever the information is coming from the prescribed authority, you will have to take the approval from the JCIT. Now, which is the area, students, where you can do the survey? So the area where, students, you can do the survey, primarily, students, in this case, generally, students, the jurisdiction which is given to the income tax authority is based on the place of business. Generally, that is how the area wise jurisdiction is given. So generally, students, the jurisdiction is allocated on the basis of the area. That is how the jurisdiction is allocated. You don't get the jurisdiction on the basis of, students, on the basis of what? On the basis of the person. But there are few cases where the jurisdiction is allocated on the basis of person. I'll give you an example. Example is filmy circle. All the film stars and all, they file the return of income. Like in Mumbai, I can tell you, they are filing the return of income only in one ward. Only in one single ward that the return of income is being filed. That ward is known as filmy circle. Also in the case of non-resident and all, or transfer pricing, students, again there is a specific dedicated ward where the return of income will be filed. So what I'm only trying to convey to all of you is this, that now here the jurisdiction is not on the basis of the area. The jurisdiction, students, in this case is on the basis of the person. Who is that person? On that basis the jurisdiction has been given. So supposedly, students, I'm an income tax authority. I'm having the jurisdiction over the person. Okay. Question therefore is, that person is of Mumbai. I am also A of Mumbai. Now I want to do the survey on the place of business occupied by such person. I want to do the survey on the place of business occupied by this particular person. Now he has got two places of business, and the two places of business are, number one is in Mumbai, another is in Delhi. So whether both of the particular place of business, can that be surveyed by me? Do I have the power to survey both Mumbai as well as Delhi in this particular case? Let's have a look what 133A says. 133A says any place within the limit of the area assigned. So this is a case where I told you what to do. This is a case where the jurisdiction is given to the income tax authority on the basis of the area. On the basis of the area. What about point number B? As far as point number B is concerned, what they are trying to say, any place occupied by any person in respect of whom the income tax, any place, can you see that? Any place occupied by any person in respect of whom the income tax authority is exercising jurisdiction. Now when you talk about any place occupied by any person in respect of whom the income tax authority is exercising the jurisdiction, tell me from my example, if I am having the jurisdiction over that particular person who has got a place of business in Mumbai as well as in Delhi, can I go ahead and do the survey in these two places of business of this particular person? And the answer is yes. Any place occupied by the person in respect of whom the income tax authority is exercising the jurisdiction. Now students, tell me one thing. Instead of me going to Delhi, can I tell the assessing of Delhi? Can I authorize the assessing of Delhi to go ahead and do the survey in the premises of this particular film star in Delhi? That particular premises which is falling in the jurisdiction of that AO of Delhi. That particular premises which is falling within the jurisdiction of the AO of Delhi. And the answer is yes, I can do it, students. If you see it here, point number C, what I can do, I can authorize the other person who although has that office falls within his jurisdiction, but he does not have a jurisdiction over the person. I have got the jurisdiction over the person, that is Mr. Shah Rukh Khan. And if I am having the jurisdiction over the person and that person has got the place of business in Mumbai, that person also have got a place of business in Delhi, in that particular case I can tell him that go ahead and do the survey in Delhi. I can authorize this AO of Delhi. Let's have a look. Any place in respect of which the income tax authority is authorized by another income tax authority. So here, who is the income tax authority? The AO of Delhi. He is authorized by which income tax authority? The AO of Mumbai. He is authorized with which income tax authority? The AO of Mumbai. So accordingly, that can be done. So which is the place? Which is that particular place which could be subject to the survey? So the place which could be subject to the place which could be subject of the survey is the place of business. The other one is, students, the activity for charitable purpose, where the activity is undertaken for charitable purpose but not the religious purpose, students. But not what? The religious purpose. So here we will say that these are the place wherein the survey can be undertaken. Now students, if you say that, like, look, if the people come just to the survey in your office, if the income tax department has come to your office for doing the survey and you are telling that, look, these particular books and all is not with me. The books of accounts are maintained and is kept by my CA. So if this is the information or this is the explanation that you give to the income tax authority who have came to your premises to do the survey, that the books and all are being kept and maintained by your CA. So the question is whether in this case then the CA's office, can it be considered to be a place of business where the department can do the survey? The CA's office can be considered as, whether the CA's office can then be considered to be a place of business where the survey can that be conducted. Just have a look, students, this explanation. What this explanation says, a place of business or a professional activity for charitable purpose shall also include any other place where the person states that any of his books of accounts or document or any part of his cash or stock or other valuable article relating to his business or profession or activity of charitable purpose are kept. So shall also include what? Students, where the person says what, Mohit? He is saying that my books are kept over there. Do this and your CA is in trouble. And your CA is in trouble, students. So be careful, all these are the points. You never know how the things will be targeted. Now also one important point, students, is about the functions. In fact, Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav got stuck because of this only. These are the times, students, because of this particular about his first daughter's marriage. What happened was that the survey was done by the income tax department immediately after the function got over. In fact, these people were just standing outside only, and the moment the rituals were over, immediately they stopped it without waste of any time, and the people who they wanted to be in, they were in, and they started doing the survey. This is what it is. But yes, again I'm repeating, so far as a survey is concerned, in connection with any function or events are there, you can do only after the survey is over. Please be very careful about this thing. Please be mindful of this particular fact that the survey can only be done after this. What is over, students? After this is over, students. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one. Every one of you are clear with this particular point, students. Only after the functions are over. Perfect. So now, students, read this one, time of survey. Even this is a very popular part which they keep asking in the examination. So the time of survey is, if you are talking about doing the survey in the place of business, if you are talking about doing the survey in the place of business, then in that particular case, then in that particular case, students, the survey that you will do will be during the business hours. The survey, this time, by the way, students, is the time to enter. This time that you are talking about it, students, this is the time that has been there is to enter the premises, not for the exit. Be careful. This time that you are talking about it is only meant for entering the premises and not to do the exit of the same. Is that clear, all of you students? So to enter it is what this time is all about. So therefore, when you talk about this one, place of business or profession during the business hour. Any other place, students, after sunrise but before the sunset. Any other place, students, what is that we are going to say? After the sunrise but before the sunset. You can say, sir, any example of any other place? Say charitable. Now you can do the survey in the charitable location, isn't it? And therefore, if you are doing the survey, say, for example, in the schools, in the hospitals, which is registered as a charitable trust, then in that case, the survey can be done only after the sunrise but before the sunset. This is when the survey can be done. Means can be done, may I correct it? You can enter into that premises only after. This is only to enter but not to exit. So you can enter it only after the sunrise but before the sunset. And I already told you about the function, ceremonies and the event. The function, ceremonies and the event, you can do the survey, students, at any time but after such functions, ceremony or event is over. Such function, ceremonies or the event is over. Is that clear to all of you? Fine, students, and that's exactly what it is. Now, if you all are through with this one, now please be careful. Please read this one. Place not to be entered, where you cannot enter it, students. Where the SSC do not carry the business. Business of a residential premises of the third party. Now, may I ask you this question? In the case of the COVID, there is a work from home that is taking place. So, because of the COVID, there is a work from home which is taking place, and because of that reason, can they do the survey expected question for May 22 attempt? Please like the video without fail. Like the video without fail, students, all of you first. So my question here is this that if because of the COVID there is a work from home, and because of work from home, primarily question arises to all of you is this, that whether the AO now in this particular scenario, can he be doing the survey in your premises? Can he be doing the survey in this particular premises? And the answer is yes. This is the only danger which I am keep on telling to all of you, which many of you are not aware of it. This is the only biggest danger which is there, and that danger is that if you are doing a work from home and you are a professional or you are having your own business, then in that case the AO is very much empowered to do what? Do the survey under section 133A. Because this is a place which can be said to be carrying the business. Okay. What about the premises of the CA, students? Whether you can do the survey in the premises of a CA or income tax practitioner, I have told you the answer to be no. The premises of the CA or the income tax practitioner, you cannot do the survey. But in which particular case I told to all of you that the survey can be undertaken? So I have told you in that particular case, the survey, students, can be undertaken. In which particular case? Do you all got this one? So students, the survey in such a particular case can be undertaken. Indeed, if you tell that the books has been kept in the premises of your CA, then the premises of your CA will then become what? The place of business, and because of that reason that the survey can be undertaken. So generally, if the question has been asked, generally Mamta or Jade, if the question has been asked, what is the question? That whether the premises of the CA or income tax practitioner can then be surveyed, you will only write answer is no. It cannot be surveyed, specific exclusion. But if they give you further information in the question suggesting to you that the SSC has offered an explanation that the books has been kept in the premises of the CA, then whether the premises of the CA can that now be subject to the survey under section 133A? Can that be subject matter of the survey under section 133A? The answer is yes. Now, what is the right, students? What is the right of the authority in this regard? For the purpose of doing the survey, students, what is the right of the authority? Can you see this right? The right in this particular case, students, is that he can inspect the books of accounts. So the right which is available to him is definitely to inspect the books. And not only that, he can also retain or seize and retain, same as that in 131. Be careful. The power under 131 is to impound the books of accounts, is to seize the books of accounts. So same is also the power to 133A. In 133 also the similar power exists, that in the course of the survey the books of accounts can be impounded or it can be seized for a period of 15 days. And if beyond the period of 15 days, if the books of accounts has to be seized or has to be retained, if the books of accounts has to be seized or it has to be retained, then can that also be done? Answer is yes, students. Even that also can be done, provided you take the necessary approvals. Students. So same as that of 131 which has been there. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now students, 133A and 133B, you will find a lot of similarity. Here also the assessing officer, students, here also the assessing officer goes to the place of business. Here also the assessing officer goes to the place of business of the assessee and gather the evidences, gather the information. So here also, if the AO is going ahead and gathering the information or gathering the evidences from the SSC by going to the place of business, so question therefore is, what is the fundamental difference between the two? What is the fundamental difference between the two, students? So there are two major differences which is there between 133 and 133B. Major difference I'm talking about it. Number one, students, here in this case, the place of business can be surveyed. Yes, it can be surveyed. But here you cannot impound or seize the books of accounts. Here you cannot impound or seize the books of accounts. No books of accounts shall be removed from such place. So here you cannot impound or seize the books of accounts, students. That is what it is. And the fact that it cannot be impounded or seized, and the fact that it cannot be impounded or it could be seized, students. My next question therefore to all of you. My next question, students, therefore to all of you is this, that why is it that then the SSC will even think of exercising the power under 133B when he is visiting the place of business, but he cannot impound the books? Then why he will then prefer 133B? There is one major reason, students. Do you know what is the reason? Here the SSC does not have to take the approval. Here the AO, he does not have to take the approval to do the survey. Unlike in the case of 133A, that before he has to go and do the survey, he may either have to take the approval of the JCIT or he may have to take the approval from the CIT, as the case may be. So here is a question of approval, whereas there is absolutely no approval. In 133A there is an approval, whereas in 133B there is absolutely no approval. So just keep that in mind. So this is one of the reasons why this section becomes very popular, that I can go to his premises and I can conduct this, I can just try to go to his premises and I can try to gather whatever evidence that I can get it over there itself, without seizing, without impounding the books of accounts as far as 133B is concerned. Without impounding or without seizing the books of accounts. Is that clear to all of you, students? All of you are clear with this one? Now one more point, students, be very careful. Sometimes the ICI does not give you in the question whether that this section is about 133A power or 133B. One of the important points, students, I'm just trying to tell to all of you, you will not find in the question given that whether this question relates to 133 or 133b, and we read the entire question and also the solution, and we just do a tick mark of one of the option. Don't do that in the examination, students. How do we identify that whether it is a case of 133a or 133b? One of the ways to identify, students, is this. One of the ways, students, to identify is this. And what is the way? That you will have to see in the question, have they mentioned the word survey? You have to see in the question if they have mentioned the word survey, because if they have mentioned the word survey, then in that case it will be a question of 133a. It will be the question of section 133a. And if in the question they haven't used the word survey, students, if they haven't used the word survey, then in that case, students, this is a case of 133b. This is the way you need to identify whether it is 133a or 133b. Is that clear to all of you? So you will nowhere find anywhere written in 133b that it is all about the survey. You will no longer find anywhere in 133b that this is about the survey. Is that clear, students? All of you. Now, students, what is the next power which I have given it to you? The power which I have given it to you is 144a. Thereafter 142a. Thereafter, students, 144a. Thereafter, students, here in 127, 142a, and the last one is 142a. This is the last particular segment of the power which will enable the AO to gather the material or the evidence on the basis of which the AO is going to pass the order. Students, I just want you to give 1 minute, and please read this special audit of 142.2a. Just read the special audit of 142. Just a minute, in a minute's time, peacefully. Are you all through with this, students? So here, special audit, you all know. What is the ground of the special audit, students? The ground of the special audit is also known to all of you, students, isn't it? So this is the ground, students, so far as the special audit is concerned. And as you can see it very clearly, that what they are trying to suggest is that the having regard to the nature and the complexity of the books of accounts, and it is it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue, that the direction of the special audit can be taken. I give a very simple example. Like the AO has got one stockbroker who is an assessee in his jurisdiction, and he has picked up his case for scrutiny. He has picked up his case for scrutiny. By the way, he does not decide for it. Actually, which are the cases that will be picked up by the scrutiny? The CBDT decides. Automatically they will let you know and you have to comply. So therefore in that case, the stockbroker case comes for the scrutiny. Now the students, stockbroker industry is a very specialized industry. And with such specialized industry students, you need to have that level of sophisticated skill and understanding to really do a meaningful job and exercise. To do a meaningful job and exercise. So here is a case of a stockbroker's particular case which comes before the SSE, before the stockbroker case which is coming before the assessing officer, and because of that particular reason students, what we will say? We shall say in this regard that the AO shall be the one. Students, the AO will now want to do this particular assessment. Now, what the AO wants to do? He does not understand anything. ABCD of stockbroker audit or stockbroker's books. So he cannot understand anything. So he wants a special audit done. Everything is fine. He is making an application to the CIT that kindly approve the special audit. Everything is fine, but the CIT will take back his step. Do you know why the CIT would try to take back his step, students, in this case? One of the main reasons in this case, students, is that the fees of the special audit, students, has to be borne by the central government. This is the biggest put-off, that the fees will have to be paid by whom? By the central government, students. And the fact that the fees will have to be paid by the central government, students, now I think all of you are aware of it. So the fact that the fees will have to be paid by the central government, students, he will back out. He will tell him that, look, first exhaust all of your option. And what is the other option that needs to be exhausted? One of the most popular options, students, is 144A. Now what is this 144A, students? I'll just let you know. 144A, which is there above in your previous particular chart. 144A, students, is that you can apply to the JCIT, the Joint Commissioner of Income Tax, students. The JCIT is the king here. So you can apply to the JCIT, students, and on application to the JCIT, students, on the application of the JCIT, you can call for the information. You can call for the information on the application to the JCIT. And here, the information that will be called upon by you would be under 144A, the information, students, that you want to call upon, primarily the JCIT, what he can do. Who is a JCIT generally? Are you aware of it? JCIT generally, students, are the specialists. These are the specialist people who are trained in a particular domain. So say for example, there is a JCIT who is a specialist in the stockbroker's audit. So therefore the AO will make an application to the JCIT and ask him for his direction, on the basis of which he will proceed further and do the assessment. That the AO will do. Second, students, here even the assessee can make an application to the JCIT and will request the JCIT to intervene in his assessment, give the direction to the AO so that the AO can do some meaningful exercises. So even the assessee can make an application to the JCIT and ask him to intervene and give direction to the AO so that the AO can do some meaningful exercise. And last but not the least, students, in this case is that the JCIT can suo moto. Suo moto means from himself. He can make this application. He can make this particular direction to the AO so that he can do it. Suo moto, he can give the direction. And that exactly is the point. Now, students, if the direction that has been given, it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue. Sorry, if it is prejudicial to the interest of SSE, if the direction which has been given, if it is prejudicial to the interest of the SSE, then whether before giving this direction, the SSE needs to be given an opportunity of being heard. Whether the SSE needs to be given an opportunity of being heard, students, and the answer is yes. In this case, the SSE will be required to be given an opportunity of being heard before the AO proceed further with the direction and passes the order to that effect. Okay. Now, what if, students, the direction given by the JCIT, is it binding? the direction which has been given by the JCIT students, is it binding on the assessing officer? To that the answer is yes, it is binding on the assessing officer. The direction which has been given, is it binding on the assessing officer? And the answer is yes. So therefore just be very careful on this particular point about the direction. But what if, students, what if there is no such assessing officer, what if, students, there is no such JCIT who exists? There is no such JCIT who is there. So if there is no such JCIT who is there, then what happens? Then definitely the SSC will go to the AO will go to the CIT. The AO will go to the CIT, and the AO who goes to the CIT, he will say what? That look, there is no JCIT with whom I can refer the case so as to get the direction. So please give me the special audit. CIT will say, wait for a minute. You cannot do it because you don't know what to do. Let me do one thing. Let me transfer the case from you means AO, to another AO who have got a good knowledge about the stockbroker's case. So the CIT has got this particular power, probably, that what he can do, he can transfer the case from one AO to another AO. But be careful, students, in this case, if the another AO to whom the case is transferred, if he is from another city, if the another AO to whom the case is transferred, if he is from the another city, students, then in that case such transfer can only be done after the opportunity of being heard has been given to the SSC. Then such transfer can only be done after the opportunity of being heard has been given to the SSC. Did you all got this one? And that exactly is the point. Only after the opportunity of being heard has been given to the SSC. Fine. If the AO to whom the case is transferred is from another city. Now one more important point, students, is arising from this judgment of the Supreme Court in Nur al-Islam and Education Trust. Students, if the AO to whom the CIT has transferred the case, if the AO to whom the CIT has transferred the case, if that AO is reporting to, if that AO, students, is reporting to another CIT, if that AO is reporting to another CIT, then that AO will have to take up a positive confirmation. Then that particular AO, will he have to take up a positive confirmation in this regard? And the answer is yes, he will have to. That AO will have to take up a positive confirmation, students, in this regard. Is that clear, students? All of you? And that exactly is the point. So this is a sort of the situation that needs to be considered. So you will have to take up the approvals. You will have to take up the approval, students, in this regard. You will have to take up the approval, students, in this regard. So absence of a disagreement cannot tantamount to an agreement. Now what has happened through the Nur al-Islam? That the other CIT to whom the AO, which AO? The AO to whom the case was transferred. So the other CIT, he has not complained that why you are transferring the case to my AO. So neither he complained nor he gave his acceptance. He remained quiet. So just because he didn't complain doesn't mean that he has accepted this sort of a transfer. No. He has to positively accept such transfer. He has to positively accept such transfer. This is what needs to be looked upon, students. So that is what it is. So the CIT, does he have the power to transfer the case from one AO to another AO? And the answer is yes, subject to the following procedures. But just think of it, students. Just think of it. If there is no such AO, students, just think of it. If there is no such AO which exists in the other place, if there is no such AO who exists in that other place, then what is the option that is available, students? Then what is the option that is available? If there is no AO which exists in the other place, then what is the option which is available? So the option, students, which is available in this particular case is that now the CIT will have to go ahead and give the direction of special audit. If there is no such AO who has any such knowledge about the stockbroker's case and all, then now the CIT has to go with what, students? Has to go with special audit direction. So students, the CIT does not outrightly will give you the direction of special audit. He will try to exhaust all the options which are available to him under the Act. And once the options are being exhausted, that the direction of the special audit will then be given. Is that clear to all of you? With that, students, we have done with. Congratulations, students, to all of you. Congratulations, students, to all of you. Congratulations on what point, students? That you have done with the power of the Income Tax Authority as well. Did you realize that? The power of the Income Tax Authority, students, is all done and dusted successfully, students. This is what it has been done. Have a look. Jade, 133, 131, 133, 133B, 144A, 127, 142. Okay, this valuation officer, students. Reference to the valuation officer, I think all of you are aware of this one also. So for the purpose of valuation, you can make a reference to the valuation officer. Now only one point, students, I just wanted to make a final conclusion. Students, the direction which has been received, from the valuation officer or the direction which has been received from the JCIT under 144A, whether those directions are they mandatory upon the assessing officer, whether the direction received from the departmental valuation officer or whether the direction received from the JCIT under 144A, is it binding on the assessing officer? And the answer is yes. Such direction, students, is mandatory. Such direction, students, is mandatory. Just keep that point in mind. Such direction, students, is mandatory. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Fine. Now, students, tomorrow I'm going to start with there is one last particular power which is left, which is the power of search, 132. So I'll do 132, the power of search, and then I will move to penalty. So tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, I'll do these two things. Penalty topic and 132. Search. The last one, power of search and the penalty. This is what will be the agenda for tomorrow's session, students. This is what will be the agenda for tomorrow's session. Did you all got this one? All of you. Now, in this case, 7 o'clock will be the timing in the morning tomorrow. Again, I'm repeating, students, 147 I've already done. 147. I will share the link of 147 in the description box today evening. Mohit, by today evening, you can find the description box of 147 also. Okay, so that you can find it in the description box. Those who are watching this video for the first time, you are worried, sir, what about the other revision lectures? So I will also give the link of all the other revision lectures, students. I will also give the link of all the other revision lectures in the link of the description box by today in this video. Okay, I hope that all of you are clear with this one now. So I'll be giving you the link, and on that basis, students, we'll meet up tomorrow for penalty. So my target is that tomorrow we will complete penalty, or if not complete, at least we will be very near to complete the penalty. Day after tomorrow, students, we will do penalty if there is any leftover, and the appeals, revision and rectification. That is day after tomorrow. So that way we will be successful, students, to complete your entire proceedings under the Act. The proceedings under the Act is what I want to do, finish it off. So by virtue of this, 75 marks revision would be over, students. Or 70 marks, may I say 70 marks revision. Did you even realize that, students? 70 marks revision by Friday, 70 marks revision will be over, which will leave me with 30 marks of revision last, which I will do it in the first 10 days of April. So by virtue of that, the entire 100 marks of revision will be over in English. Even Hindi, I am doing the same thing, wherein the same particular thing would be done. So I have done every topic. Now you'll say, then what is left after this Friday? So MAT, AMT, alternate minimum, alternate tax regime, capital gains, chapter 6 reduction, and some miscellaneous. That's it. That is what would be left, and you will be done with your 100 marks of revision, students, completely. Okay, so that is what, students, I'm going to just stay in tune with this one. And now, students, just a very quick announcement. I'll just do it. before now we conclude the session, a quick announcement, students. The announcement, students, as you all are aware, here is students, intermediate students, you have to tell to all your friends, juniors in the office who have got their intermediate examination due in November or May 23 as the case may be, to enroll in this week itself, because from the first week of April the price will go up. So 4 days to go. Can you see that? 4 days to go, that has been written. And also do tell them that whenever they will take up the subscription, in that particular referral code that they will do is the CADS. The referral code that they will do would be the referral code CADS. Fine. So that is one important point that has been there. Now students, the special class, students, I am doing it. Are you aware of the special classes which we are doing it, students? At night 10:30, all the latest case studies and the case studies are done at 10:30 PM every night. MCQs are done of the ICI. That I do it at night 10:30 to 12, daily night. Tonight the latest case studies and the MCQ on non-resident taxation would be done. NR taxation would be done, students. Are you aware of this one or not? So 10:30 live special class would be done, students. Don't miss out on this. Those who are saying, sir, what about the earlier thing which you have missed out? Don't worry, at least start attending that live today special class primarily. So I'll help you out. What about the other one that you have missed out? Okay. So many students are asking, sir, how many hours total for that special classes? So total students, the total hours would be around 12 hours or so. But these covers all the latest case studies and the MCQ of the ICI. That is the reason why it is so important. So it is not that I have created my own thing and I am doing it. These are all the ICI stuff. So which you should always do it without fail. So that is what it is, students. Subscription, students, the plus subscription, those students, any one of your friend has got, say he wants to do a crash course or he wants to do even a regular, he can take up as low as a 3-month subscription, students. He can take up as low as a 3 months of subscription, students. Charuta, he can take up as low as a 3-month subscription. Students, all of you like the video without fail. And by taking up a 3-month subscription, they can put up the code CADS to get an outright 10% discount, students. They can put up the code CADS to get an outright 10% discount. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. And that exactly it is. So students, just tell them without fail to put up the code CADS. Yeah. Charta, tonight it will be 10:30 for the case study, but that is a special class. Tomorrow morning 7 AM I am doing with you the continuing of this lecture. That is tomorrow morning. Link I will give you by evening in this video itself. In this video itself you will find the link. In this video itself you will find the link. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So students, with that I will see you then tomorrow morning for the revision session. See you then, students. Take care. Bye bye. Have a nice day to all of you.